Like, it's not, they don't have a face-shaped face.
Ouch. Hello, lovely people. Welcome back to this lovely place on the internet. Today we are here with a guest. Yay! Hi! Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi. Okay, yeah. I'm B. My pronouns are she, her, or he, him.
Yay! Okay, and today we are going to be talking about neurodivergence. I will be your host, Lau, and we have our two neurodivergent contestants. Woo! Alright, would you guys like to introduce your breed of neurodivergence?
I guess I'll go first. I'm autistic, and I have ADHD and Tourette syndrome.
I am probably on the autism spectrum, also potentially dyspraxia, and perhaps ADHD. But whatever's going on, there's something up with my brain that's awesome and not normal.
Alright. So, we are going to be talking about how neurodivergence impacts the experience of gender identity and sexuality and all the things along those lines, with our speaking octopus, who is yet to have a name. If you have name ideas, comment them down below. We will use this as a talking stick. Alright, question number 1. How does being neurodivergent affect your view of Western gender roles?
I guess I have the octopus. So, gender roles is like, a very like social construct thing, and being autistic, I definitely struggle with social constructs as a concept. So it never really, it's not that it doesn't make sense, although it doesn't make sense, but it's just like when I was in elementary school, it never even occurred to me at all. The thought did not cross my mind. It just wasn't a thing to me.
Like Western gender roles weren't a thing to you?
Or like that, and just also the concept of gender in general. I heard the word girl, I heard the word boy. They sure were words that I was hearing. But it never really occurred to me that I was one of those two things, other than the fact that people referred to me as a little girl.
Oh, do I get talking after this?
Yes.
Okay, so we've already established that we're the same person here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there might not be that many different points.
No, so I have a very similar answer in that I wanted to talk about how gender, Western conceptualization of gender just is a social concept that doesn't register with me. I don't think it ever did as a child. I didn't mind being called a girl, that was fine and dandy, but I didn't think too hard about it, so yeah, kind of the same thing.
Okay, question 2. Has your neurodivergence affected your experience with / understanding of gender? So, same kind of question. Anything else to add?
Yeah, so similar thing. I didn't really think about gender at all because it is a concept, and a social concept at that. So it didn't really occur to me to have a gender. And then I started thinking about it, was oh, I don't have a binary gender. I don't have one of those. Yeah. Do you want to add to this?
Yes. So, yeah, my brain is going blank.
No pressure.
Ain't nothing up here. I'm very spacey today.
That's good for our channel. Welcome to the Spacies.
I, like I said before, I didn't think about gender at all when I was younger. But then now, I feel the fact that I identify as non-binary is, like, very much affected by the fact that I'm autistic, because, like, it's, like, the idea of gender just doesn't connect with me at all. Like, it just, like, it doesn't click at all.
Question 3. How does being neurodivergent affect who you feel most attracted to?
So, I feel like being neurodivergent definitely affects how I experience attraction. It affects who I'm attracted to in, like, I tend to, like, pick very specific things that, like, I find attractive in people, or, like, no, I don't, like, pick what I'm attracted to, obviously, but, like, when I'm attracted to somebody, I feel like it's very different than what, like, people who are neurotypical might, like, find themselves attracted to in other people. Like, I am attracted to people with facial features that I feel are very distinct. Like, if somebody has, like, a face that's, like, considered conventionally attractive, I might not find it attractive because it just, like, doesn't... It's not face-shaped to me, if that makes sense. Like, unless they have, like, a distinct facial feature that I can, like, really pick out, like, it's not... They don't have a face-shaped face. Like, that makes no sense. But that's how it is in my head. That's the word I go going with.
Do I have a face-shaped face?
You do have a face-shaped face.
Do I have a distinct facial feature?
It's like...
It's face-shaped.
It's face-shaped.
Got
yes.
it. Okay.
When I say that somebody has a face-shaped face, it's like they have a face where I can easily identify the, like, expressions that they're making, which doesn't usually happen on, like, you know when you see a, you know, like, celebrities who are, like, the ones that people find attractive, but they just look like nothing?
Yeah.
Those people have the least face-shaped faces.
I got you.
But, like, people with face-shaped faces, like, I can see them, and they, like, I can recognize their expressions, and, like, it's especially easy with people who, like, have, like, very distinct facial expressions that some people would consider to be unattractive. Putting many quote marks everywhere. I find myself attracted to people who have what I consider to be face-shaped faces.
People I find aesthetically pleasing are the people I'm most attracted to. I'm aromantic and asexual, so I don't feel romantic or sexual attraction towards anyone. But people I find aesthetically attractive, either by, like, what they're wearing, what they choose to do with the corpse materials that they have. That was supposed to sound less creepy. I mean, things like dyeing your hair or piercings or tattoos or stuff.
This is my corpse material.
Yeah. Body sounds like a dead body to me, and corpse sounds like a living body. Anyways, aesthetically pleasing corpse materials are great. But in terms of, like, gender of who I'm attracted to, I consider myself, like, mostly pan-oriented, as in I'm not attracted to one particular gender, is just sort of all of them. I think they're all pretty cool. I do find, however, that more, like, non-binary and girl people are a lot cooler to look at a lot of the time. I think that's just a coincidence, though.
Alright. Question 4. Has your neurodivergence affected the way you think about sex/romance?
Okay, so I'll start with sex. I think potentially being neurodivergent would impact that because I don't really love being touched. Like, it's fine most of the time. It depends. I don't like unpredictable touch and can get overwhelmed by touch really easily. Although I think that's in part a sensory thing and then also in part a social thing because I don't know how hard to touch people. I don't know, like, where to touch people correctly.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do the touch as a human.
That's a mood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sort of impacts how I feel about sex. It just seems like a bad situation for if you don't know how to do touch. Also a bad situation to get really overwhelmed in all of a sudden. Yeah. And then romance. I made a whole video about amatonormativity, and this, I think my neurodivergence impacts how I perceive romantic relationships in particular. But yeah, romantic relationships don't make much sense to me, and I think that's because I lack the comprehension of, like, this monogamous romantic expectation, so they just seem weird to me, to be honest. But I think they're cute sometimes, but not for me. I don't get it. Okay. Yeah.
Being neurodivergent definitely affects my experience with sex. Because as somebody who doesn't identify as, like, fully asexual, I identify as being gray-asexual, or, like, a more specific identity that I use is reciprosexual, and I've had sexual experiences before, and they can be very, very overwhelming because it's, like, a very overwhelming sensory experience. And although I've never had, like, particularly, like, what I would consider to be a bad sexual experience, I have had, like, a shutdown during sex, and that was bad. It was not a good experience, but it did end quickly after, so that's good.
That's a relief.
Yeah.
Attraction? ? Does your neurodivergence impact your ability to differentiate between platonic, romantic, sexual, and aesthetic attraction? So
my neurodivergence definitely affects this. I have a lot of trouble differentiating between platonic and romantic attraction. Like, it's really tricky for me because I experience, like, really intense platonic attraction very frequently, and for a really long time I would confuse it with romantic attraction, which is why for like a really, really long time I thought that I wasn't gay. I thought that I did like men because I would experience like really intense platonic attraction towards guys, and I would be like, oh, I want to be your friend, or like, oh, you're a really good friend, I want to like cuddle you, and I would be like, is this romantic attraction?
Like that meme with the butterfly.
Yeah. Is this
a squish? Is this romantic attraction?
And then like also coupled with, you know, like compulsory heterosexuality, I have a really hard time differentiating between squishes and crushes, and I have a really hard time differentiating between like aesthetic attraction and sexual attraction. Like I'll see somebody that I think is really like aesthetically attractive and I'll be like, do I want to fuck this person?
Like, are they different? Like, at a certain point I'm like, have I ever felt sexual attraction before? Like, or is it just other types of attraction I thought were sexual attraction? Yeah.
Another thing is like something that I feel like is very like autistic of me, I guess, is like when I'm in a sexual situation, it has to be dark. It has to be dark. I can't, if I see things, bad.
That makes sense.
It's just because it's because it's already so sensorily overwhelming.
Yeah.
I feel like experiencing like then visual stimuli is like makes it even more overwhelming.
Yeah, I think that's like a pretty common preference, but probably for different reasons.
Yeah. I totally get that. Like whenever I'm overwhelmed, my like eyesight is the first thing I'm like, nope. And I will just like close my eyes or look down or look away from movement in particular.
Yeah.
So like I feel like I'd do something similar if I ever came across that situation.
Yeah. And that experience is why I had that shut down during sex that one time. Is because the lights were on and I was like, this is really bad.
Too much vision.
Too much stimuli.
What was I gonna say for this? I had a whole thing I thought out.
Oh. We're being a bit spacey today.
Yeah.
You came to the right place.
I have like, I guess a bit of an inverse experience of this because I don't know if I feel attraction. I don't know if I feel anything. I don't know my feelings. I don't understand them. I can't communicate them, so it's hard to like feel attraction in the first place, never mind differentiating attraction. I don't know how to be into people.
I feel like not knowing how to be into people is an indicator that you might not be into people.
Yeah.
Perhaps a little bit.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
Differentiating I could see is hard, but I don't have the internal sense of it enough to even like get to that stage of differentiating different types of attraction. Like I've heard the word alexithymia or alexithymia, which I highly identify with, like not understanding your feelings or being able to word them.
I've never heard that term before.
Oh,
now I have.
Yeah, you should look it up.
It's interesting. Alright, question 6. How do you guys feel about xenogenders and neopronouns, and how do you feel they like correlate with neurodivergence?
I don't actually, I'm probably not the best to speak on this. I'm sure you have lots to say. I think xenogenders are super cool because it's such a good way to conceptualize gender. We're going to make a whole video on them, so that'll be exciting.
Look out for that.
Yeah, super valid. I haven't identified with a xenogender myself. I don't use its pronouns, so not my experience, but like, you do you if that's you. As for how it correlates with neurodivergence, I don't have any particular opinions on who should be using neopronouns or xenogenders. I wouldn't want to like gatekeep anything, but also like, I don't know. I respect that it is a very neurodivergent centered thing. I'm gonna hand this to you.
Okay.
I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
So, at the beginning of the video I said my pronouns. I said I use she, her, or he, him. But I also use its pronouns because
we respect you.
Thank you. As an autistic person, I feel like a very disconnected sense of like humanity, if that makes any sense. So, and that's a very common experience for a lot of people who are on the autism spectrum, and that's how xenogenders came to be. So, like, touching on, like, do I think that they're, like, a neurodivergent specific thing? Neopronouns, I'd say no, because neopronouns have been all around for a long time, like, existing outside of neurodivergent spaces. However, xenogenders are, like, a very neurodivergent specific thing. Somebody who isn't neurodivergent wants to use them, then that's fine, in my opinion. But it's important to acknowledge where they came from, and that's autism and ADHD specific spaces.
That makes sense.
I've changed my opinion to copy paste that onto me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree too. Not that I really have a say as neurotypical, but I think I agree.